Euro elections, elections to the European Parliament. From this time I will like to address this problem from European perspective. It's slightly different than Polish perspective because in Poland we still have overwhelming majority of people are supporting the European Union because of this old vision of the European community from the 1990s still going on in our heads, although it's not really valid anymore. And we think that we can get some more money from it. So from Polish perspective it's slightly different than from European perspective. I have made an entire a separate clip about Polish perspective in Polish language. Okay, so back to the European perspective. The greatest problem, because the European Union is just openly and just plainly is not working anymore. The first thing was the crisis of the Eurozone, and the Germans were the only happy guys because they could export beyond the Eurozone, and because of that they were independent slightly from this crisis, and at the same time they were trying to put through a very this politics of austerity that was really ruining from other European economies, and they did it. And the other countries which are deprived of the possibility of making their own economic policy, they were going through a very harsh times. So this is how it was working, and then came the European migration crisis came, and the problem that was solved by the small, I mean in terms of population, by the small Australia, 20 million inhabitants, and they were able to solve this problem in a couple of months. And the European Union, it took over 5 years to deal with this problem, and it's only partly solved. So we clearly, by bribing the Turks and by because the Australians, they have secured the camps in Papua New Guinea for the refugees, for the pseudo refugees and for the real refugees to live in. And when the second and third wave of those migrants, refugees, whatever, when they realized that they will not be going to beloved Australia, but they will be going to the Papua New Guinea, they were slightly less enthusiastic about the whole affair. So they were not coming in very huge waves anymore. And the problem stopped after several months. In European Union, years were wasted on consulting of the governments consulting each other, and so on and so on and so on, and making in spite of each other, and so on and so on, and by the lefty idealistic policy that has nothing to do with the real world. And now after 5 years, we are basically doing what the Australians were doing 20 years earlier. So we are bribing the Turks to stop the influx of the immigrants, and we are conducting, and by the way, it's not on the European level, it's the Germans and French and so on and so on. So we clearly now see that the European Union is not working at all. Only several countries who are the most Euro enthusiastic countries, they are trying to do something, but very late and ineffectively. So they conducting talks with Tunisia, Jordan and so on to secure the places like the Papua New Guinea for the Australians, to put the influx of the migrants and discourage the next waves. So clearly European Union is not working. The European perspective and the Polish or Central European perspective is slightly different. We still have this vision of the 1990s European community, that we can get some money from it and so on and so on. But in European case, it's of course the economically it's zero game. So the main problem of the European elections, parliamentary elections, is firstly, the problem is that the European Parliament is the only body that is really elected, but it's not the body that's really deciding about the policy of the European Union. That's a big problem. But if the really Euro-skeptic Parliament would be elected, then all the commissioners would be influenced by the outcome of this election. So still it's worth to go to the European elections. So I hope that this time even more Eurosceptic